Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever looked around a room and noticed that the loudest person there is almost never the most powerful one? It's wild, right? Today, we're diving deep into a seriously fascinating psychological paradox. Instead of playing that exhausting game of desperately seeking external validation or begging for a seat at the table, we're going to look at how true rarity is actually built quietly. We'll see exactly why becoming undeniable is the absolute ultimate form of leverage.
Because let's be honest, most of us are just flat out playing the wrong game. We spend our entire lives chasing attention. Just think about the sheer mind-numbing exhaustion of constantly trying to prove your worth on social media, or making absolutely sure everyone at work knows exactly how busy and important you are. It's draining. But true power? It's an entirely different beast. It literally begins the moment you stop performing. It's rooted in quiet competence and having total emotional control. The real magic shift happens when people realize that while having you around is highly valuable, your absence, well, that's incredibly expensive.
Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, Attention versus True Value.
So there's this massive, profound difference between simply being noticed in a crowded room, which is super fleeting, by the way, and actually being needed. True value is basically a state you achieve when your absence immediately creates a noticeable problem or a gap. Think about someone who constantly has to advertise what they bring to the table. They're essentially just begging for recognition, right? Now contrast that with gold. Gold doesn't walk around tapping people on the shoulder telling them how valuable it is. It absolutely doesn't have to convince anyone. Its intrinsic scarcity tells the whole story for it. True value simply exists, and the second it's gone, you feel that gap instantly.
Moving right along to Section 2, the scarcity of availability. This brings us to a fundamental psychological principle that governs honestly so much of our social dynamics. And it's this: human beings naturally adapt to abundance. If you're always there, you eventually just become invisible to them. As the saying goes, unlimited access destroys appreciation. To really wrap our heads around the absurdity of human nature here, just imagine two restaurants. The first is basically this sad, empty buffet. You can walk in anytime, no wait, zero effort. Pretty soon, you don't even think of it as a special place to go at all. But now, imagine a super trendy spot where you basically have to know a guy just to get a reservation weeks in advance. That limited access, it instantly creates immense psychological value. When your access is unlimited, people absolutely take you for granted. And this brilliantly illustrates a dynamic we see all the time. We all know someone who responds instantly to every single text and always says yes. But ironically, we easily adapt to them until they just kind of fade into the background. Saying yes to every finite, meaningless request actually dilutes your energy and your worth. Now contrast that with a highly selective person. They're calm, they're capable, and they help on their own terms. When you're selective, you literally force people to truly listen when you finally speak. Your help actually means something because it isn't just an automatic reflex. I mean, think about the low-key anxiety of texting someone who occasionally leaves you unread. Suddenly getting their attention feels like winning a real prize.
Which brings us to Section 3, Calmness as True Leverage.
Okay, here is a hard truth for you. You can be incredibly competent, like a literal genius at your job. But if you lack emotional control and constantly react to every tiny bit of drama, you just become an exhausting liability. Your competence completely gets overshadowed by your emotional cost. Think about it this way. Emotional independence begins when you stop handing strangers the remote control to your mind. When you rush to defend yourself against every little misunderstanding, you're literally handing over your power. Stepping back to just quietly observe instead of immediately reacting, wow. It is a highly underrated, incredibly powerful form of social intelligence.
Calmness is absolutely not weakness. Calmness is leverage. Picture your workplace during a massive crisis. When everyone else is panicking, getting super emotional, or starting to point fingers, what happens? The calm person instantly becomes the reference point for everyone else in the room. By simply not reacting, they are the only one who actually retains the perspective needed to read the room. So how does this change your daily life? Well, it means you stop wasting all your precious energy responding emotionally, and you start responding strategically instead.
Let's transition over to Section 4, the power of real boundaries. True confidence really doesn't need to loudly dominate a room. It commands respect through quiet structure and crystal clear limits. And this totally relies on understanding the stark difference between a fake boundary and a real one. A fake boundary is essentially just a threat. It sounds like, if you do this, I'll punish you. That's an attempt to control someone else's behavior, which, spoiler alert, literally never works long term. A real boundary, on the other hand, is a commitment to your own behavior. It's saying, if this continues, I will remove myself. You absolutely cannot control other people, but you have 100% control over what you tolerate. And make no mistake, what you repeatedly tolerate teaches people exactly how to treat you moving forward. So the crucial point is that you don't need a megaphone to demand respect. You just walk away. Boundaries and standards have to be demonstrated quietly through your behavior, not just announced with desperate words. You demonstrate your standards when you simply leave abusive conversations. You show them when you stop explaining yourself to those who are basically committed to misunderstanding you anyway, and you prove them when you stop chasing disinterested people. You never need to yell for respect. You just need to behave exactly like someone who deeply respects themselves. Next up, we have Section 5, the architecture of rarity. So you're probably wondering, how do you actually build the substance behind this kind of presence? Well, it mostly comes down to daily, pretty unglamorous mechanics. You have to put in the practice when absolutely nobody is watching. You have to keep the promises you make to yourself. You have to learn to say no to pointless consumption and drama, and you need to deliver consistent results over years. People drastically misunderstand discipline. Discipline isn't necessarily about adding some crazy 4 a.m. ice bath to your routine. It's often just doing less. Less scrolling, less gossiping, less reacting. You cut out the meaningless stuff so you can ruthlessly protect your finite attention and energy, all for mastering a truly rare skill. And our source material points to this absolutely brilliant ultimate sweet spot. Check this out. You want to be entirely predictable in your character, but unpredictable in your availability. Let me break that down. Predictable character means you are deeply reliable, principled, and you actually keep your promises. Unpredictable availability, though, means you're highly selective with your access and you prioritize your own goals first. Think about it. If you're unpredictable in your character, people just aren't going to trust you. But if you are entirely predictable in your availability, they will inevitably take you for granted. Mastering that balance, that's a real game changer. And that brings us to our final chapter, Section 6, the paradox of value. This right here reveals the absolute core truth of everything we've been talking about today. True rarity is never, ever about playing silly games, acting cold, or manipulating other people into staying around you. No, it's about building a self that is so internally stable that you simply do not need their validation anymore. The less desperate you are to be chosen, the more incredibly valuable your choice becomes. That is the absolute core paradox of value. You see, people do not fear losing someone who desperately wants to be needed. They can sense that desperation from a mile away, and honestly, it repels them. What they actually fear losing is someone who is deeply useful, incredibly capable, but who doesn't need to be needed. When you stop depending on others for your own identity, your presence in their life suddenly becomes a very powerful choice. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really profound question to chew on. Who would I have to become for my absence to actually matter? Seriously, write this question down if you need to, keep it saved in your phone, let it be a daily reminder to just stop playing the social scoreboard, stop chasing attention, stop reacting to all the noise out there, and start patiently, quietly building a life of undeniable internal value. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this framework helps you build a character that is truly impossible to replace.